Good morning, everybody. You're here with Burley County this week on Extension Connection with Super Talk 1270 Radio. My name is Chandra Zeman-Belinsky. I am the Family and Consumer Sciences Agent today, hosting with Ashley Stegman. What's your title?
I'm the Ag and Natural Resource Agent in Burley County.
All right. So she's going to give us a little bit of a crop report, a weekly crop outlook report, and then we're going to tie that back into a little bit about heart health, and then talk about Valentine's Day and some different ideas on staying in to eat and healthy recipes, all kinds of different activities versus just handing out candy. What do we have on the crop report? Because
Well, first, I guess I've kind of got a pop quiz for you, Chandra.
Okay, cool. Goody.
Who do you think purchases or in the world globally now? Who is the largest buyer of wheat?
Okay, buyer of wheat, like company or country?
Country.
Okay, so country, I wonder if it's Germany.
No.
Oh, geez.
It's actually, why would you think it's
Well, because they have a lot of bread, they
That's
always
true.
have brioche.
And what else? Actually, the country is Egypt. We wouldn't really think of Egypt being a very large importer of wheat, but you think about, like you said, your all your breads, your grains. So Egypt is the world's largest wheat buyer, and just recently it has rejected three largest shipments of wheat that they have bought. And so that's kind of playing in with our markets today. Egypt recently tightened their maximum allowability level for arrogate in wheat. And so arrogate is a type of contamination, a disease. And so they are tightening their acceptance level of that. And so we're seeing a little play in our markets because of that. Those shipments were from Romania, France, and Russia, so there were no U.S. wheats that were affected in this transaction. Egypt is a very price-sensitive buyer, so they're only going to buy when the price is right. And so that's why right now we might be seeing a little fluctuation in our price on wheat. Winter wheat crop conditions ratings improved slightly in Kansas and Illinois. Kansas, Illinois, dropping down into even Texas, Oklahoma. That's where a lot of our hard red winter and soft red winter wheat grows. And so just kind of updating their ratings there have improved slightly. Down in Texas and Oklahoma, they're a little bit drier, and their projections aren't as good as they were last week. Overall crop conditions in both of those areas for the hard red winter and the soft red winter wheat crops are above from last year's ratings. And so it looks like there's going to be a good production yield on that hard red winter and soft red winter crops. Also, we're keeping in mind globally with our commodities, whether it's corn, soybean, wheat, or canola. Brazil and Argentina are some key players in that corn and soybean market. Weather conditions in Brazil and Argentina remain to be mixed again. Soil moisture conditions in southern Brazil and Argentina are still dry. So if they're dry there at this point of the season, their seasons are a little backwards from us. We're dormant right now. They're in their growing season. They're growing corn and soybeans, and they're dry. And so if you think of the time of the year, end of July to August here, that's kind of what they're dealing with right now. And so that might, if they don't get the moisture they need, that could really hurt or dent their production crop. And so we kind of just are keeping an eye on if they do get the rains that they need, they are looking like they will have a very good bumper crop. And so that will also play in the scheme of the global markets for commodity prices. So it's good kind of just to think globally. Not, you know, we produce a lot of crops here in the United States, but there's a lot of countries in the world that also do it, and they do play in our markets. And so why we're seeing our corn and soybeans prices so low is because Brazil and Argentina has had quite a couple good years of growing, and so we have a lot of corn and soybeans on hand, and that's what pushes our prices down. But you know, these are all crops that produce that product that then goes on to further processing to produce our foods that we're consuming. And so, you know, when we're talking about wheat, and with February having, you know, Valentine's Day in, we sometimes overindulge on our holidays.
Yeah.
And Valentine's Day is kind of one of those I think we're starting to kind of overindulge on.
Yeah, we got it back together in January after, you know, the holiday over Christmas probably.
And now we're maybe you have really stuck with your eating healthy, working out, you know, New Year's goal. And now here's another road bump you're going to hit.
Right.
And we're going to see all those yummy foods and candy.
Right.
I know, you know, kids, they still are handing out those Valentines with candies.
Yeah.
And so, you know, that's one thing that we kind of have to think about, you know, to carry out our New Year's health goals.
Yeah, that's a good point. So actually, we're just about to take a break. Let's get into some Valentine ideas that kind of help you so that you can get over that speed bump of holiday eating. And, you know, the important thing to remember is that if you want to indulge, you don't have to keep it going. You can stop and start anew. Okay, so without even getting into the bump, I mean, do you want to start us off with a couple ideas?
Yeah, you know, whether it is with your spouse, your girlfriend, your boyfriend, or your special person, or your kids, you know, instead of, you know, having that big gorge fest, if you will, on candy and cookies and whatnot, what about taking that time and doing something physical? Have a physical activity planned. You know, right now outdoors, it's not too cold out.
Not too bad.
It's pretty nice. We can, you know, bear it.
A little brisk today, but it's been nice.
You know, if you can find a hill that has some snow on it, sledding's a great option. You know, snowshoeing, cross country skiing if there's snow. Ice skating. I know I have an ice rink fairly close to my home, and my kids, they don't have ice skates and they're too young to actually skate, but they love to go out on that ice rink and just play. So getting outside and being active, or indoors, you know, having a game planned, a game night, that can be something that involves all of your loved ones and gets you really
laughing
active
together
and doing something.
Yeah, doing something, laughing, it's therapeutic. Well, good. We're going to take a break and we'll come back with some more ideas, probably revolving a little bit around food and whole grains.
Currently, it's 21.
Here's Sean Hannity, weekday afternoons on Super Talk 1270.
Good morning, everybody. Welcome back to Extension Connection. I'm Chandra Zeman-Bolinsky, the Family and Consumer Sciences Agent in Burleigh County, and I'm joined here by Ashley Stegman, the Agriculture and Natural Resources Agent. And she led us a little bit with a crop report. That was really interesting to talk about. I guess, you know, you really focused on wheat, and that Egypt is the number one importer of wheat, right?
Yep.
And I knew a little bit about that disease you mentioned, ergot, I think it is, where I know that it appears darker. Some of the kernels appear darker because it's a disease.
Yep, that's right.
So, all right, well, let's move into... we were talking about Valentine's Day and some ideas. You don't just have to go get little individually packaged candies to have fun on this holiday, to celebrate those we love. You know, St. Valentine is where this story came from.
You know, I know, I just saw this morning when I dropped my kids off at daycare, they are doing a Valentine's Day party. And what they are doing are, instead of your heavy sugared candies, they are doing fresh fruits. So
Good
all
idea.
red fruits.
Red fruits.
Red
That's
fruits.
a great idea. We're going
And
to talk
so,
about that.
You know, that's really, really something fun and healthy and different to do. So there's an idea for you. And with February, it's not just one day, Valentine's Day, but it's also Heart Health Month.
Right.
Correct?
That's right. We're going to, yes.
Okay. And so, Chandra, you're going to be talking kind of about some of those things
Right.
that you can monitor about your heart.
Yeah, let's get into it. So Heart Health Month, February is always Heart Health Month. March is always Nutrition Month, plus other different things that are going on. And I really love February because there are lots of things that tie into Heart Health Month, you know, along with Valentine's Day, the color red. And like you said, they're celebrating red fruits and vegetables, maybe fruits you said, instead of candy at your daycare. And that's a perfect idea. So I do have a publication in front of me that is from NDSU Extension, and they specifically talk about eating red to be healthy for your heart because it elaborates on Valentine's Day, and even throughout the year you can do this. Red fruits and vegetables contain phytochemicals. I actually just taught this to third graders. This isn't a program that we teach nutritional physical education to third graders. We actually talk about phytochemicals. Any guesses on a phytochemical that actually gives fruit its red color? You've seen it on ketchup, and it starts with an L. I don't know if they label it anymore. Lycopene.
Lycopene.
So for some reason, because tomatoes are in ketchup, but anything really red fruits and vegetables probably contains lycopene. And it's funny because a lot of people don't realize that there is way more lycopene in watermelon than there is tomato, believe it or not. But it just depends on the amount of phytochemical in that particular fresh produce. We also have anthocyanins, which is another phytochemical that's high in red fruits and vegetables. And what you want to know about lycopene and anthocyanins is that they do the following 4 things that really affect your heart. There's a couple that are non-heart related, but we'll go through them. So it lowers the risk of some cancers. It promotes a healthy heart, they do, meaning the red phytochemicals, memory health, and then actually urinary tract health. A lot of people associate cranberries with urinary tract health, and that's probably due to lycopene and anthocyanins, especially anthocyanins. Anything with cyanin on the end, of course, cyan means blue, so it kind of gives it a little bit of a purple color. But those anthocyanins, actually, when you're tasting your food, have a tendency think grapes and how they can be somewhat drying on your tongue. Yeah, there's a burst of wonderful juice and it's refreshing. And then at the end, you can kind of feel a little dry. Like, if anybody's a wine drinker, you think of the tannins, those could be anthocyanins. And so we call that astringent because it's refreshing, but yet it leaves an astringent type drying sense. And so that's usually anthocyanins. So if you get a lot of that, well, there's probably some good phytochemicals in there. So that can be good. So I love that they're promoting red. So red fruits and vegetables can also include, we talked about tomatoes. Your spaghetti sauce has it in there. You just have to make sure you're not too high on the sodium, which is contradicting the goodness of the phytochemicals. Sodium's not too good for your heart if you go over certain number of milligrams a day. Any guesses on what that is? Per day. We need, it's a little over 2,000. So we need about 2,300 milligrams a day.
Okay.
And the average American gets 2,600 milligrams of sodium in their diet. And actually, I was just talking to ninth graders about this. And you hear about, too much sodium is bad for your heart because it increases your blood pressure, right? Well, why? I thought, especially at that age, they really dig into why, which is a healthy thing. Keep asking questions, The big reason is because if there's too much sodium in your system, especially in your bloodstream, actually, it will cause your surrounding cells, to actually release water to buffer that in your system so there's more fluid. So think about, plumbing, for example. Like if you have a small pipe, maybe 2 inches in diameter, and it has rushing water coming out of it, not as much water as maybe a 10-inch diameter pipe, you're not going to be knocked over by that pressure of that limited amount of water or fluid versus more fluid. So the more fluid, the higher your blood pressure. And it's directly linked. And it can actually be a pretty fast reaction. So if you have a meal, your body is then responding to it. So it's almost an immediate reaction. And that's according to some of our extension publications as well as Harvard Medical School. So I thought, hey, let's talk about why, versus just this is a fact. So Heart Health Month talked about some red fruits and vegetables, which is a great thing to do to counter maybe some of our bad habits. But there is actually a way to assess your risk of having heart disease. And a lot of us, when we're in our, if you're under 40, you're probably not too concerned about what you're putting into your body. It's catches up with you later. They actually say osteoporosis is a childhood disease. You just don't know it, because this is when your bodies don't really build bone mass much after 30. It's a little bit into your early 30s, but you're catching up for the rest of your life if you haven't built it when you're young. So drink all that milk and all kinds of milk and whatever calcium supplements you can. But now let's get back into heart health. There's a little quiz that we have, and you can say yes or no to these. So let's go through these questions. So do you smoke? Yes or no? And of course, we want you to limit your smoking, and it's because smoking damages your heart and your blood vessels. It hardens your arteries, and that's called arteriosclerosis, which is a hard word to say. But anybody who smokes typically has that going on, and their heart isn't able to respond to stress and even do as well when you do healthy things like work out. All right, so do you have high cholesterol? Yes or no? And I really want to pause on this just for a second, because as we talk about heart health, do you have high LDL? So if you have high cholesterol total, that isn't actually necessarily totally bad. You just want to make sure that your LDL, which is the bad cholesterol, isn't too high. So if you have high good cholesterol, which is HDL, then you're doing okay, because HDL actually facilitates the movement of bad cholesterol and other saturated fats out of your bloodstream. And so you actually want high good cholesterol. It's just that LDL. So I always remember LDL is bad because L means low. Low isn't as good as high. Maybe that's just how I associate it. So remember LDLs. Okay, we are going to talk a little bit about LDLs and HDLs when we talk about trans fat in a little bit here. But let's keep going with this quiz. Do you have diabetes? Yes or no? You're at a higher risk then. Do you have high blood pressure? Yes or no? Are you overweight by 20 or more pounds, according to a healthcare provider? That's not your own assessment. I mean, I would say I probably would like to be 20 pounds less too, but, that's not necessary for my body. There's no way I could lose 20 pounds. So, I mean, maybe 5 here and there. I weighed 143 as a senior in high school, and I weigh maybe about 8 pounds more than that now. And so, I don't need to lose 20 pounds, maybe about 5 or so. And they say the average American, by the way, let's throw something interesting in here. Every decade, you gain about 5 pounds.
Oh, really?
So, you know what? That's kind of true with me, just naturally, even if you're trying to watch it metabolism-wise. And there's many factors in there. But if I'm about 8 pounds or maybe 10 pounds more, well, guess what? I've been out of school 20 years this year from high school. So that's about accurate for me, even though I really try to watch it. It's kind of interesting. All right. So are you physically inactive? Of course you want to be active. How many minutes a day do adults need for physical activity? Do you have any idea? I know I'm totally putting you on the spot here.
I would say 30 minutes.
Yeah, good job. It's 30 for adults, and your kids need 60 minutes a day. And you can take 15-minute segments, 10-minute segments here and add that up.
It is so easy. You think of a half an hour.
Yeah.
How much do you get done in a half an hour? Like a half an hour goes by so quick.
It's fleeting.
That, I struggle with, I try to do, a workout for half an hour at least. But it's like that half an hour is it goes by so quick.
Right.
But at the same time, you have to find a half an hour in your day to do that.
Yeah. They say, and it totally applies to me. You just want to get out and do it. Like make yourself get out, because then you're probably going to spend more time. All right. Well, we need to take a break here. We're going to get back and finish our risk factors for heart disease quiz and get into some fun ideas here for Valentine's Day.
Currently, it's 21.
The home for ABC News at the top of the hour is Super Talk 1270.
Welcome back to Extension Connection. You're here this week with Burleigh County. My name is Chandra Zeman-Belinsky. I'm the Family and Consumer Sciences Agent. And I'm joined by Ashley Stegman here and she's our Agriculture and Natural Resources Agent. And we're talking about February being Heart Health Month. Also tying that into Valentine's Day a little bit. And just before the break, we were about halfway through our "Do you have risk factors for heart disease?" quiz. So you're able to say to yourself yes or no on these. And as you're answering these, any one of these could actually, if you say yes to this, you could be at risk for heart disease. Okay, so we just talked a little bit about, are you overweight by 20 or more pounds according to your healthcare provider? Yes or no? Are you physically inactive? Yes or no? Okay, now these are new ones here. Are you 45 years of age or older? Yes or no? Because as we age, we're more at risk. Are you postmenopausal if you are female? Because your risk significantly increases. Do you have a history or family history of heart disease itself? So father or brother stricken before age 55. That significantly catapults you, unfortunately. Mother or sister stricken before age 65. Yes or no? So this is how you could know if you should maybe check out your cholesterol levels, go have a physical with your doctor or, physician's assistant or nurse practitioner. You could probably also want to have them, ask them about doing labs and checking out maybe your potassium levels and other things that they can check to make sure that you're healthy, your blood pressure and things of that nature. Let's get into just a fun little fact here. How many times do you think your heart beats per day? How many thousand times? This is interesting to think about. Well, the answer is 100,000 times per day, approximately.
Wow,
And
I was not thinking that.
I know.
At all.
I mean, your little heart here per day. And of course, when you are younger, it's beating more than that because their pulse is higher.
So it's that important to make sure,
Yeah.
You do go through that. Do you have health disease or risks factors for health disease to really keep your heart in check?
Boy, I know it because it just doesn't get a break. I mean, it's, somebody told me one time when I was rehabbing my knee and I wanted to baby it that, look, you've got to move it. Your knee is addicted to movement. It needs it. Well, your heart is addicted to beating. So that's good. This is what it's meant to do. But you need to take care of it for sure because you've only got one for the most part.
Yeah.
All right. So, yeah, I mean, it needs to pump because your blood supply supplies nutrients and oxygen throughout your body. And that's actually how your body heals. Any of you who have had an injury, you know that the majority of your cartilage doesn't actually have blood flow in blood vessels. And so cartilage doesn't heal. Like that blood flow is truly what helps your body repair. And so a lot of times they aren't able to stitch up cartilage and it repair itself because it doesn't have that blood supply. It's just super important. So let's talk about how to take care of yourself. You can start easily by reading nutrition facts labels. Nutrition facts labels are on all packaged foods. They're available even at your meat counter of how to watch for. So they're available, at your meat counter. And if you don't know how much fat is, especially saturated fat usually comes from animal products, not always, once in a while from coconut. Fat comes from the marbling. It could even be something that you can cut off on the outside, but you can get that information from your butcher at the meat counter. So if you need nutrition facts, if this is your way of figuring out if you're healthy or not, this is how to do it. All right. So one thing you want to look for on your nutrition facts is total fat. You really want to see if you're at saturated fat levels that are too high. And typically we say with saturated fat, if you go over to the daily value percentage, it's a healthier choice if you're not over 10% on saturated fat. And really there's kind of a rule of 10 with all nutrition facts labels and all these items. So if you're not over 10% on total fat, if you're not over 10% on cholesterol, not over 10% in sodium or added sugar or 10 grams of sugar, you're doing okay. It's a healthier choice. And then you want to see at least 10% of the vitamins that are available. Also, in this case, it's 5 grams of protein, 5 grams of fiber, so that it doesn't quite follow the 10, but usually it's that 10 rule. So that helps you when you're looking at labels. Well, what are you looking at? So kind of that rule of 10. So I'm going to talk a little bit about trans fat, and then Ashley's going to share with us some information about meat, since we're talking about saturated fat and meat and how you can make your Valentine a dinner instead of going out and saving a little money. But okay, let's talk about trans fat and saturated fat a little bit here. Okay, so why does saturated fat have a bad rep compared to unsaturated fat? Any guesses here? I mean, it does have a bad rep.
Saturated fat versus unsaturated fat.
Yeah.
Well, I think is saturated just, I don't know, people used to saturate it a little more?
Okay, maybe. What happened was back in the late 70s, early 80s, and I kind of remember the morph and what you saw, margarine versus butter is kind of when we got into this. So there were studies that were done by many. CDC was involved, Harvard Law School or medical school was involved. So the big dogs did some studies that were controlled that showed that saturated fat increased your bad cholesterol, increased your LDL.
Okay.
And so that's the thing. So we're saying to be heart healthy, you want to limit your saturated fat because you don't want the bad cholesterol. You want the good cholesterol. Okay. So saturated, that's why you want to monitor. Total fat is a little different. That saturated fat, you don't want to be over 10% on that nutrition facts panel. All right. And so then let's talk about trans fat, the difference between trans fat. Trans fat now, so what they did was they then said, all right, well, let's fake our bodies out. And so let's take margarine, take oil, and convert it, and we'll make it solid, and we made margarine out of it. Well, usually they had to modify, like soybean oil or some type of, you'll see modified soybean oil on ingredients labels. And that's typically a modified oil is usually margarine. And sometimes your different shortenings, okay, that you like to bake with. Your perfect pie crust sometimes comes from those darn shortenings, okay? Well, that's called trans fat. They changed the it's chemistry, okay? We get into the cis versus the trans bonds, okay? We won't get too deep into that. But that trans fat now is what they created. So after a couple decades of having that, thinking that we were being healthier, well, now we know, boy, trans fat is double as bad as saturated fat. So we actually say we want people to get 0 grams of trans fat. We don't even want them to say max of 10% like we're saying with saturated fat. We don't want you to eat any trans fat, modified fats. And here's why. Not only does trans fat increase your LDL, but guess what? It also decreases your good cholesterol, your HDL. So there's a double whammy here. It's not good at all. So if anything, you want to do saturated fat before that. But, your best fats are your unsaturated fats, usually in the form of omega-3, 6, 9 fatty acids. You've probably heard of them from fish sources and things like that. But there's many different sources. But let's get into, since we were talking about saturated fat, and sometimes our meat sources have that. It doesn't mean that meat's bad. Boy, it has a great source. Red meat, especially, great source of zinc and iron and lots of protein. So let's talk about cooking a steak for our loved one for Valentine's Day. What's the right way here?
Well, whether or not you decide to make a homemade dinner for your loved ones on Valentine's Day, or if you want to plan something a little special and go out for a nice dinner. In my family, we're big beef eaters, so it would probably include some type of steak. And so just a reminder. Usually, when you have you go to a steakhouse, you are ordering, if you order prime rib or a T-bone steak or a porterhouse or New York strip, those are going to be your little more expensive cuts of meat. But really what that is those cuts are from what we call the longissimus muscle.
Oh.
So that's a muscle that runs the whole back line of your beef animal. And that's where the meat is the most tender.
Yeah.
And so if you really want a piece of meat, a bite that kind of just melts in your mouth, you don't have a
That's
lot
the
of
best.
chew on it, that's where you want to be picking, your New York strips, your ribeyes, your porterhouses. Those are kind of the cuts that you're going to want to go for. Well, if you're in a nice fancy steakhouse, you're going to be asked, how do you want that prepared?
Right.
Yes, of course, you want that to be cooked, but you'll be asked, would you like it rare, medium, or well done? We really advise you to stay away from that rare, because rare is when you only get to about 140 degrees. And it's really suggested to cook your meat to 145 to really make sure that muscle is free of all bacteria odds.
Yep.
And so medium rare is 145, medium is 160, well done is 170, and it's really suggested for the best taste, the best patability for that meat, that cut of meat. You want to stick in that medium or medium rare to medium. That's when you're gonna have the most tender kind of melt in your mouth moment. So just kind of a FYI, stick in that medium rare to medium for your beef cuts, and you should have a wonderful Valentine meal.
Yeah, and I'm really glad you said that. So, of course, they'll know those temperatures at the restaurants. They're audited to make sure that they stick with those time frames. And if you're making your steak at home, that 145 degrees is that magic number for a wonderful medium rare steak. I started out my life saying I want well done, and then I came over to the bright side, the light, right? And so if you're doing it at home, you do need to make sure. If you don't have a food thermometer, I've got one for you. So all you have to do is call us at 221-6865, and I will get you a meat thermometer. I'm sorry, a food thermometer. They're not used just for meat. It's easy to transpose that. But when you're prepping and actually temping your steak, you want to do it lengthwise and get at least 2 inches of that probe into your steak. And you, at that 145 degrees Fahrenheit, make sure that you're holding it for 3 minutes.
All right, well, we will be right back with some more tips on a Valentine's meal.
Okay.
Thank you for listening.
Currently, it's 25.
Mary Lou Henner, weekdays on Super Talk 1270.
Good morning, everybody, and welcome back to Extension Connection. You're with Burleigh County this week. My name is Chandra Zeman-Belinsky, and I'm the Family and Consumer Sciences Agent, joined here by Ashley Stegman, the Agriculture and Natural Resources Agent. I really like what we're talking about today. It's kind of fun because we can tie in, your knowledge of beef and crops into, how we can feed our bodies in a healthy way. And we're celebrating Heart Health Month, as well as a little bit about Valentine's Day. So we're going to talk about, we took a quiz earlier in the segment on how to assess whether or not we are at risk for heart disease. If you say yes to any one of these questions, you should probably consult your physician. You smoke, high cholesterol, high blood pressure, are you diabetic? Are you overweight by the doctor's standards, not necessarily just your own? Are you active enough? We want you to be active at least 30 minutes a day, but if you think about it, that's 23 and a half hours that you're not. So you've got plenty of time. That's at least a motivator. Don't feel bad about it. Just feel motivated. Are you postmenopausal as a female? Are you older than 45? And do you have a family history? Okay, so if so, what can you do to improve your heart health? All right. Well, there's a few fundamentals here, and I really like this because I have learned this not only through Extension and their research, but even early on. So this is some stuff that has some old research because when I first started learning about nutrition in high school and college, this stuff really hasn't changed much. So we want to eat fruits and vegetables and low-fat dairy products. And if you ask yourself, well, how much fruits and vegetables? It's about, for adults, 2.5 cups of vegetables and 2 cups of fruits daily. And then you can check out myplate.gov as well. We follow those guidelines. And fiber is always good for you, especially soluble fiber. There's a couple different types of fiber, and sometimes you'll see the breakdown on the nutrition facts labels. They aren't required to break that down. So if you're watching for total fiber, that's good. But soluble fiber, such as in sources of like barley, oatmeal, legumes, and beans, cooked beans, produce also has some fiber. Carrots and apples. That's why we suggest to eat the fresh produce versus drinking the juice, because you do get the benefits of fiber and other things as well. The enzymes that help your digestion, those are killed off with the heat step that is done on juice when it's made to pasteurize it to make sure the microbe levels are down. And so fiber is tied directly to whole grains. We want you to make half your grains whole. So you want to look for, actually, when you're looking at the packaging, the word whole. Like, look for whole grains. And this is, whole wheat or whole grain oats or something of that nature. And we usually like to see it as the first ingredient. Okay. Hey, we talked about saturated fat and why trans fat is bad. Trans fat's bad because it not only increases your bad cholesterol, it decreases your good cholesterol, your HDLs. So, you want to stay away from the saturated fat in excess, but hang on to that polyunsaturated and monounsaturated fatty acids in your diet. So what does that really mean? Poly versus mono. Well, some of that's chemistry, but let me give you the sources. Polyunsaturated fats are sunflower oil, safflower oil, corn and soybean oils. So we've got plenty of corn and soybean growing right now in North Dakota, right? So maybe support those growers. Do we have any oil producers in the, meaning
like canola,
vegetable oil? Yeah, canola oil producers.
Yeah, we do actually. Canola is oil is derived from canola. Okay. We also have a lot of sunflower producers will have your confectioners or your oil seeds.
Interesting.
And we're actually seeing more oil seed sunflowers being grown, and actually the state sunflower association sees that we're going to have more acres associated to that because of this health, and that there are better, I guess,
oil choices or something,
choices,
yeah.
In those oil seed sunflowers. So.
I've recently, in the last year and a half, because I read about the benefits of sunflower oil, have switched to that sometimes. And, when I'm cooking, it depends on the heat capacity too.
And I know there's heightened in omegas, and so that's kind of a health trend right now is looking at those omegas. So I foresee seeing a lot of oil seed sunflowers being grown.
Right. Yep. And then monounsaturated fats, another, if it's unsaturated, it's good for you. But you want a mix actually of them. So some monounsaturated comes from olive oil, canola oil, and peanut oils. So, if you need to know how much of the types of unsaturated fat, just give me a call at 221-6865 because I can help you out and so that you can get a balance in your diet. All right, so fish is a good source if you can get it around here. Any fishermen, ice fishermen. My grandpa just pulled out a 14-pound, 38-inch northern he's 91 years old, out of the ice over in Mercer County here last week. And I thought, good for him, because that makes him happy. That's a stress reliever, too. We were talking earlier. Cool. And then, soy, talking about those soybean producers now, soy is actually very good for your heart. And which is partly why there's a connection there with the females and why they have that question about postmenopausal too. And we won't get too far into that chemistry, but tofu or soy milk. Sometimes there's soy-based burgers, which most of us beef eaters doesn't sound so hot. But if you are concerned about your heart, you can mix it. Maybe do a half and half, right? Mm-hmm. And then there are soy nuts out there too. I think our soybean council gave us some samples too.
Yes.
So stop in the office. We probably have a couple packs for you. All right. So those are ways to improve your heart health just by nutrition alone, which is a huge step that you can make for yourself. Well, let's get into the fun stuff as we close out the last segment of our show here today. Ideas for Valentine's Day, since we're talking about hearts. Okay, and being healthy. So red ideas, remember earlier we said what makes red fruits and vegetables? Well, it's the phytochemicals in there. Those are what keeps your heart healthy. So let's incorporate red just for the sake of the holiday. All right. So you can, besides red, you can do heart-shaped things to remind yourself. So I have a suggestion here that says you can do heart-shaped pizza. So you can get the pizza cutters or even cut them out yourself. Pizza cutters are a fast way to do it. You can do heart-shaped peanut butter and jelly sandwiches. Have you seen, pancakes is an easy one.
Oh, yeah.
So everything heart-shaped for that
really
day.
Fun.
Yeah. So, and then, of course, when you're doing pizza, you can do, and there's a healthier way to build a pizza. You can make sure that you use pizza sauce, red sauce versus the white sauce, because it's better for your heart and typically less saturated fat. Again, pasta with tomato sauce if you want to incorporate red into your diet. And here's something fun. Popcorn is a pretty healthy snack. Popcorn is actually a whole grain, okay? And so adding tiny red cinnamon candies to your popcorn snack might be kind of fun.
Okay.
Tossing your salad with red bell peppers, cherry or grape tomatoes. I don't know, cranberry sauce. I love cranberry sauce. And did you have anything else to add, or are we going to keep going here? I mean, on my list, because you did have the give back to your.
We can kind of just keep going.
Yeah, on my
yours.
list. So
I know
raspberry smoothies. Do
Yeah,
you like smoothies?
I do
Yeah.
sometimes. The kids really like them. Something that we do with our cranberries, and we have the dried cranberries.
Dried cranberries are good.
I'm not a big fan of just eating them
'Kay.
plain.
Okay.
But we will bake them and kind of candy them with almond and broccoli.
Wow.
And it kind of makes a nice little. It probably could be healthier, but it's a good option to do something with your.
So you do that with broccoli too?
Yeah.
Oh, that's amazing. Okay. And almonds are great. Great for you. It's a heart healthy snack, actually.
And then just putting some olive oil, tossing that, and adding maybe a little sea salt or just for a little sprinkling.
Yeah.
It's a great way to incorporate many different things that
Right.
are healthy that you don't maybe think about putting together.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Here's an example with a pink grapefruit, which is a red fruit suggestion. Some of you I'm not going to be able to convince to not put sugar on your grapefruit, but we are suggesting to put brown sugar on your grapefruit. So maybe if you wanted to make that treat sweet versus savory, you could use a little brown sugar on top of the sea salt. Sometimes that works too for people. But, there's all kinds of, if you gave us a call, ideas for February, whether it's Valentine's Day or Heart Health Month, you can call us at Burleigh County Extension at 701-221-6865, and we'd love to help you out. And make sure that if you don't have a food thermometer, you give us a call, and I'll send one out to you. All right. Well, thank you so much for listening.
Thank you.